Let me first say it's a true honor for me to stand here, being Dutch myself, and speaking at the Dutch Digital Days is, of course, absolutely fantastic. But indeed, in this time, which has been dubbed the post-truth era of fake news and alternative facts, what can a regular citizen do to uncover more information about governments and armed groups that hardly or do not at all provide any information about bombings, about corruption, about anything really? And a growing number of citizens is using online open source information to investigate such governments, such larger powers. And it was really nice to see Tahira's story on Peru, because recently I've been visiting South America on behalf of Bellingcat, because we're also trying to expand to see how we can help using these monitoring tools, for example, in illegal logging or illegal mining and so on. But there is this growing number of citizens using this online open source information to uncover facts. And Bellingcat was founded in 2014, so 3 years ago now, and basically to bring those together that are already doing this kind of open source investigation. And indeed, as was mentioned, Bellingcat comes from the idiom belling the cat. And the story is about it's an old Greek fable, I believe, about a cat and a group of mice. And the group of mice is really afraid of this large and dangerous cat. And they're wondering, how the hell on earth could we challenge this very large and powerful actor that is basically threatening us? So they have an idea. They say we should put a bell around the neck of the cat. And in that way, each time the cat comes close, we are able to know that he's here and we can be safe. Now, that's a really nice idea, but they don't know how to do it. And then they only realize by cooperating, as you can see in this picture, what was made for our crowdfunding campaign when we initially started, that the only way by belling the cat, the only way to bell the cat basically is by working together. And that's the idea behind Bellingcat. Because of the digital revolution, because of the information revolution, we can cooperate everywhere around the world. I mean, we're a collective, consistent. We all started as volunteers. We're now from Russia to Iraq to Syria to Colombia to Venezuela. We're cooperating, and because of digital communication, we can work together as a group of mice and charge and basically challenge larger actors in this world. So the cat, which you can see here, I'm not sure if it's a laser. Yeah, it is. That can be anyone. I mean, when we were just watching about Peru, it could be the Peruvian government. And I would like to show you 2 cases right now of basically larger cats we as a collective have been challenging. And this will be both, now maybe opposing actors again, both the Russian Federation as well as the United States. So I'll start with the Russian Federation.
From which location was Flight MH17 shot down? And how was the weapon brought there and removed again? The investigation team
so I was not sure
able
that it
to
was
answer
sound,
those
but
questions.
That's the problem of converting PowerPoint files to Keynote. The thing is, I mean, we're in the Netherlands, and to my regret, I mean, I don't think I will really have to explain what this is about, because this was MH17, a civilian airliner that departed just around the corner from here, from Schiphol Airport, and was destined to arrive in Southeast Asia. But while it was flying above eastern Ukraine, it disappeared from the radar and it crashed. Now, immediately afterwards, there were a lot of theories what may have happened to the airplane. And the thing is that it was really hard to believe as a regular citizen what is true and what is not true. Because there were stories about a bomb being planted on board. There were stories about a fighter jet shot it down. There were stories about a rocket that shot it down. So what can you still believe from all these kind of different flows of information? So online, people started looking for clues. And this turned out to be a very important picture. And it was uploaded before MH17 was shot down, and people were saying this is in the area where MH17 was shot down. And what we see here looks like a Buk missile launcher system. Now, one of the theories was that MH17 was shot down by a Buk missile launcher system. Now, the thing is, could we verify the location of this photo, and could we probably get a time of the day so we could locate this transport, this military transport in the region? Now, this is a thing we call geolocation. It's basically trying to find the exact location where a photo or videograph was taken. And what we're doing is always looking for visual clues. And in this photo, the visual clue was the name of a shop. And we can see it's in Cyrillic, but we can see it says something like, we can only read Toya, Dom, or something like that. So you just try to make some random Google searches. And eventually we found a wiki which shows shops in the area. I mean, there are people doing this for fun. Don't ask me why. But they're keeping on. There's so much information online. So these are shops in a small town in eastern Ukraine. So now we have a full name. We thought, okay, let's take a guess. We try this. We fill this into Google. And what do we find? We find a court document. This is not of interest because it's from years ago. It was a little fight in the shop, maybe two drunk guys smashing each other's head. That's all not relevant. But what is relevant is that it included an address. So we just copy-paste the address, fly to the location in Google Earth. And now we can compare the satellite image which you see here of the address with the image we just saw on the ground. Now that already was for us. I think we were thinking, well, here is the bug driving, photos taken like this. But now we have a location, we're always trying to find more information. And probably all of you have seen once or maybe even twice or even more like these funny Russian dashcam videos. I mean, don't ask me why, but a lot of people in the former Soviet countries drive around with their dashcam on. And usually we see it when something funny happens, but there's also a lot of boring stuff like this guy. He's just driving around in this town with his dashcam on. Nothing happens. But it is incredibly useful information for us, because what do we see here on the right? That same shop sign. And here on the left we see the building which we saw on the photograph as well. So we could tell local journalists, we think this is the location where the photo was taken. And if he took a video, and if we make an overlay of that same bug photo, we could indeed confirm it's the exact same location. So now we have a location where a bug missile was shown allegedly on the day that MH17 was shot down. The question was, could we also determine a time frame in which it was driving there? And there's this really interesting tool called SumCalc, and it's basically trying to determine the time of the day by using shadows. Basically the oldest way we've always been using time. So now we have an exact location, and we can just spin, we can drop it here, and we can see in which direction the shadow is at which time of the day. And in that way we could also determine the time of the day of that photo. Now this is one very small example of a way wider investigation, because of course there was way more footage of that same convoy. I mean, here we see it driving and somebody films it in his apartment. It was uploaded to YouTube, posted to Twitter, and basically all these kinds of bits of information Bellingcat tried to summarize and verify. So we could basically map how a bug missile launcher was traveling through eastern Ukraine before MH17 was shot down, and was traveling back after MH17 was shot down with one missile missing. Now, at the same time, this is of course interesting, right? I mean, I'm not saying necessarily this is now the established story, but this is only a few days after MH17 was shot down. At the same time, there are governments presenting information, and this is a satellite image being presented by the Russian Ministry of Defense. And I'd like to call this the Colin Powell moment or whatever from the Russian Ministry of Defense, because if you remember Colin Powell, who presented satellite images on the eve before Iraq was invaded, allegedly showing the weapons of mass destruction or things related to it. I mean, after all, they didn't show that at all. But if you present satellite image, people are always like, well, I'll just believe what the guy on the stage says. I mean, don't believe me what I'm saying here. I'll show you why, because everybody can fact check such information, because it's all open. That's the strength. So they presented this image, and they said, this is a Ukrainian military base, and over here we see a bug missile launcher. Okay, that's interesting. Then they presented this image. They said it was taken 3 days later, on the 17th of July, when MH17 was shot down, and this bug missile launcher from this Ukrainian base is gone. Now, of course, this is really interesting. They weren't saying that that Ukraine shot it down with a bug, but they were strongly implying it did, because it was gone on the 17th. Now, if we take a closer look to those images, we can just go to, for example, Google Earth, Microsoft Bing, doesn't matter, openly available satellite imagery. And we compare those images with the public information. We can see there are some discrepancies between what we see on this image and on the public imagery. For example, let's have a look at this set of trees here. Now, if you would go, this is what the Russian Ministry of Defense said, this is the 14th of July. If we would go to public imagery from the 17th, we can see there are no trees. So, well, that's possible, right? In 3 days, they cut down all the trees. Could be. But if we go back in time, we can see this is the 17th, this is the 2nd, and that's the 21st. So the whole month there have been no trees in that location. So how the hell on earth can the Russian Ministry of Defense present imagery from the 14th of July and there's suddenly trees standing there? I mean, this is just basically, as a kid, you had those two images next to each other and I had to compare what is missing, and there's a cup on the table and it's not on the other image. I mean, this is basically the same. It's not even that difficult, but you just have to do it. And it's all openly. So, I mean, we are really trying at Bellingcat to show, like, well, it's easy to fact-check such stuff. Sometimes it's getting more difficult, of course. But usually the first steps are easy. Now, of course, bear in mind, this satellite image was presented 4 days after MH17 was shot down. So don't ask me why they presented that, but obviously it was really, they called it evidence regarding MH17, and they're presenting satellite images which is not even from the dates. So Bellingcat was more interested to see how we could find out more about this bug we had already been tracing. Now, there was one problem. This is an image from, a video, sorry, from on the other side of the border in Russia. And as you can see, there was just not one bug missile launcher, but many of them. So how the hell on earth could we be sure that we were tracing the same vehicle in Russia as well as in Ukraine? I mean, what if we were tracing a wrong bug missile all the time? So a colleague came up with what he called a side skirts fingerprint. So as a human being has a fingerprint, there must be unique characteristics of this missile launcher. And what turned out to be that above the wheels there is this side skirt, and it's damaged along the way it's being used. So if we build a database of all bugs being seen in the region, both in Russia, both in Ukraine, and as you can see, the red one is what we're interested in. You can see they are very different from each other. So this is the one we're interested in, of course. So in that way, we were able to map basically the exact same bug missile launcher system we had seen in Ukraine, which was there when MH17 was shut down and traveled back to Russia again. So this is what we mapped, and basically these are all the data entries of geolocations, right? So the track ended near a city called Kursk in Russia. So we thought maybe there's an anti-aircraft brigade there that has such a bug missile. And indeed they had, and we Googled, and they had a profile, a group on Vierkontakte, kind of a Russian Facebook, and they also posted an attendancy list with names. So, okay, you type in those names on social media, and you find that they are active on social media. Now, this is not even that interesting, because they're just having fun, but they're also posting pictures while they're on the roads. So again, we had way more information now to, again, track those military systems. But sometimes they would make it so easy that they would even pose in front of the signs of the places where they were. This is close to the Ukrainian border, so we didn't even have to geolocate it because he was posing in front of the sign. Now, in this way, we have been able to reconstruct how this bug missile launcher traveled from Russia, ended up in Ukrainian territory, and was eventually traveled back after MH17 was shut down. But because of the social media presence, we have also been able to identify who's responsible for this specific bug. And basically, these are the guys we believe must know who eventually pressed the button. Now, this is also information that we have presented and given to the Joint Investigative Team, and so far all the public results of the official investigation have also basically come to the same conclusions as we did. So this is just to show, this is just what regular citizens can do, finding out more. Now, I know I can see I only have 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes left, but I find it very, very important, I want to make this clear, that it's for example, for us, these satellite images are relatively easy to debunk. But if I'm starting to investigate my own government, the Dutch government, which I do, if I start investigating the Pentagon, the US Department of Defense, it's way more difficult because they're very, very knowledgeable that there are people out there trying to monitor them. So, last but not least, in the 1.5 minutes I have remaining, I want to show you an investigation we did recently on an alleged bombing of a mosque in Syria. Now, the interesting thing is that the first claims that were published about this said that it was a Russian airstrike or a Syrian government airstrike on a mosque in Syria. But when we started looking at the open source material, we found that weapon remnants were not at all looking like the bombs Russia was using, but instead looking like Hellfire missiles of the United States. So that was the first indication the US may be responsible. Now then, could you switch off the sound for the video, because I think the sound will be playing again, but I will just talk next to it. It's off anyway, cheers, thank you. So basically the US admitted that they struck the site, but they were wrongly locating it in Idlib, Syria, which is a province. Basically they said it's in Amsterdam, but we said no, it's in Rotterdam, we geolocated it. I emailed them, the Pentagon emailed me back, sorry, yeah, it was indeed a mistake, we don't know why. So that's already interesting, right? I'm not even kidding, they really had the wrong location for it. Now, they said, okay, there is this claim that it was a mosque, But this is the mosque, they said, and this is what we bombed. We didn't bomb the mosque. So again, we are not interested whether the US is true or not. We're just interested, what are the facts? Whatever the outcome is, I couldn't care less what the outcome is, whether it was a mosque or not a mosque, whether Ukraine shut down MH17 or Russia, we don't care, or Russian-backed separatists. But what we tried to do with this bombing, because they were clearly saying it's not a mosque, and people on the ground were saying it was, we were just trying to collect all this open source information of this location and build a 3D model in cooperation with Forensic Architecture, a group of architects in London, and also with Human Rights Watch, and basically to get a better understanding what that building was. And what we found, also footage from before the strike, and it clearly indicated that it was a large and functioning mosque. We see the adhan speaker on top of it. We see the sign of the mosque here. And basically, we could also go through the interior and so on. So we were able to challenge the Pentagon and say, listen, you say it's not a mosque, but based on all the open source information a regular citizen can find, we challenged that statement and we believe this was a mosque. Then they came with a statement reacting to it, and they said, well, this was not really, you just don't have the intelligence we have, like the intel, it is a mosque. But they did start an investigation, and recently they admitted they indeed made a mistake, and it should have been on the no-strike list, as they say, and they admitted it was indeed a mosque. So you can see that we can challenge, well, those bigger cats, and I know I am way above time, I'm so sorry. I just want to end on this note, because we are just regular citizens like we are, and this group of mice, which I am now presenting some work of Bellingcat, that can be any one of us. We are that together. I mean, Tyria showed it with her investigation in Peru. I mean, we are trying just to challenge larger powers in this world, but the only way we can do it is by cooperating together as this group of mice. That having said, many thanks for your attention.